What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the More Than Philly Sports Network. It is great to be back with all of you. It has been about a week or so, but we are super excited to be back, not just for one show, but we are doing ourselves a little bit of a doubleheader today. Of course, our regular show here at 12:30 p.m., and then tonight, it is the beginning of the NBA Finals between the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks. Who would have thought that in the beginning of this season? As always, joined alongside my co-host, Gavin and Tony. We have a fun day in store for everybody. We have a fun show here to go over quite a lot. We have a lot to catch up on in the sports world. But first of all, Gavin, for those of you who may or may not know, it was Gavin's 18th birthday this weekend. I had the great opportunity to celebrate. We had quite a fun weekend ourselves, Saturday hanging out with Gavin and his family. Gavin was able to come over and hang out with my family on Sunday, and we're here Tuesday to break it all down, go into the sports world, and be able to dive further into the NBA Finals.
Well, first of all, Zach, I want to say thank you for coming out and having some fun. And you're invited to all the barbecues now. You got to meet my in-depth side family. Going all the way from uncles, I don't get to see, consistently a lot, but they're all funny. You had a lot of funs and laughs, and the food was fantastic, Zach. I know that was the most anticipated part. You and my dad were going back and forth, taking subliminally shots at one another. I was playing, but the food lived the expectation, the mac and cheese and everything. So I'm glad you had a great time. Thank you for coming out. And the rain did not stop the party. All right, look, the dancing in the rain, everything from here on out was fun. And we found out that my cousin is coming to Westchester with us, so it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely, for sure. Did I hear Gavin saying Westchester? Is there an announcement coming finally?
Zach,
finally time to eat.
Give me the breaking news, Zach. Go ahead. Give me the breaking news filter. I got you. Come on.
You may do it. All right, here we go. We're going with it, everybody. We got some breaking news here on tap. Stay tuned.
And he comes out with the first one. That's not even the school colors. I don't understand.
Yes, it is.
The purple and gold? No, that's Lakers colors.
And
ladies and gentlemen, after months of speculation, it will be Westchester. I will be joining Zach for the next couple years. How long? We don't know. It came down between UConn and Westchester. Zach, and arguably Westchester edged out just by a little bit, but Zach, Don't count out the other school. We know how the talks have been going for me on this end, so who knows what I'm going to do. But as of right now, ladies and gentlemen, your boy is staying home.
Congratulations to you. Of course, we will be continuing the show next year. We're going to see if we can pull some strings to continue to increase our fan base, be able to reach out to more people on different networks. So, look, stay tuned. We have a lot of exciting things coming up. I'm sorry I put Gavin under the spotlight there a little bit, but we have to have some fun every now and then. With that being said, yes,
he was waiting months for that. By the way, I just want you to know that he was.
And I do have to say this as well. I did also beat Gavin in a free throw competition this weekend. I beat him in 2K. It's just been a fun weekend for me overall. Gavin's got to get his revenge at some point.
I will say this: look, the free throw competition, whatever his dad put in the state, must have been fantastic. I need to get me one of those next time because he did not miss after he ate. Ladies and gentlemen, surprisingly, he did not miss, and I was making all my shots before I ate. So maybe I got to stay hungry and not eat. And ladies and gentlemen, PGA 2K Tour, just not my game. Best putting in the world, but just not my game.
Without a doubt, with that being said, are you ready to get started, Gavin?
I am. We got a lot to talk about, and I got something wrong with Scottie Pippen, but we'll get there in a minute.
Indeed we will. Starting off with the biggest news of last week, the Supreme Court overruling a rule declaring it unconstitutional that the NCAA can withhold players from being able to use their names, use their faces to collect money, whether it's through donations or if they're making money through sponsorships. It's about time. That's my message. I have two messages for the NCAA. I can sit here and talk about how bad of an organization they've been, how they've mistreated a lot of their players and have punished a lot of them. But instead, I'm going to take the high note. I'm just happy that this finally happened. Again, it's been a matter of time, but this was well overdue. Let's be completely honest here. Do I think that NCAA athletes should be paid by their schools? I really don't. Especially if you're D1 or D2, where you're getting at the very least a presidential scholarship, arguably more. Again, not every program has the luxuries of D1 football. We talk about D1 football. We talk about full rides. That's not the reality for a lot of these college athletes. So for a lot of them, they're not getting a full ride. Some of them are getting some money taken off. I have friends I know that are playing as low as D3 that are getting money taken off of their tuition, but still a big burden for them. And to put them under this bubble where they're restricted from being able to go out and make money using their name, using their face, out in other areas, it's unfortunate. And look, this is a free country, and the United States is a free market. So if
Say
a
that
player
again. Say that again.
this is a free country and it's a free market. And the same way that it went for rights that we talked about last year, and we continue that conversation very much, this conversation needs to continue with things like this with athletes. The reality for a lot of athletes is not all bright, and people don't understand that until they've seen it firsthand or have heard stories about it. For a lot of players, they're going through a lot of sacrifices. Sometimes arguably choosing an education not as high as they could have went to be able to continue to play their sports and give themselves an opportunity to either play for the next 4 or 5 years, or even to go to the next step up and play professional, whether international if you're a lower player, or to stay here and hopefully enter one of the professional leagues here in the United States. The truth is, a lot of players put a lot of sacrifices on the line, and it's not all easy. You're not making millions of dollars in college. If you're a player that you know is going to be a one and done like Zion Williamson, it's okay for them. But that's not every story. For a lot of kids, being able to get tuition taken off to go to college is the only reason that they go to college. I remember we had our friend Matt on last year from Friendly High School, where he explained to us that for these kids, basketball is their driving factor. It's what gets them out of bed in the morning. And this is true for so many sports. So what, you're not going to play in Wimbledon one day. A lot of players that play D1 tennis go on to be tennis pros at country clubs, go on to continue to compete in different events, and also continue to be coaches and students of the game. Same thing goes for a sport like golf. A lot of Olympic sports. You talk about rowing, a few other sports like that, pole vaulting, high jump, all these different types of track events. They're not getting a lot of money taken off of their tuition. And if they're important enough, if someone wants them to be sponsored, you should not take that opportunity away from them. And that's where my biggest issue is. My biggest issue is not with players not getting paid by the universities. I honestly don't think they should be paid by the universities if they're getting scholarships, if they're getting tuition taken off, if they're being allowed to use those resources within that university. I don't think they should be paid like an employee. But where my problem comes in is when players like Trevor Lawrence, who used his face to donate money just a couple years ago, or James Wiseman, who took a loan essentially to fly his mom to watch him play, to be punished for things like that is where my issue is. It's a lack of focus on what's important. It's disrespectful to the game, and it hurts them even more because players like James Wiseman, who didn't have a lot of money at the time, was asked to take the amount of money he took to fly his mom out to a game to donate it. And the NCAA tries to use that to patch it up. It is disrespectful. It is heartless. And I'm glad that it finally has been overturned. Because, again, it's not about them being paid by the schools. It's about the players off the floor, off the court, off the field, having the freedom to do what they want and to make money using their image and likeliness. Is someone going to go out and buy a jersey for a random player out there? Most likely not. But if a local athlete is able to help with a donation or help promote something locally, why can't they do that?
I mean, damn, Zach, I would have loved being an Anthony Nash jersey when he was coming through Duke, or I'm definitely waiting for a Paige Becker's jersey to drop whenever they decide to start making them. But having said that, Zach, look, you're not wrong. My university paying students, that's a different story. Zach, I have a different take on that. You're right. College tuitions, everything being taken up, that's nice. But at the same time, you're generating so much revenue to that school off of your name, your talent. So let's go back to that Duke, the fearsome three, as I like to call them, with Cam Reddish, Zion Williams, and RJ Barrett. That was a powerhouse. Just those three players alone. Now Cam Reddish underperformed at some points of the time. We know what Zion brought to the table for his shoes, gave out on him literally, and we know what RJ Barrett brought to that whole season. Zach, they had to make at least a couple $1 million off just those three players alone. Not even get into the rest of the team. Don't you think, all right, $1 million, maybe you give them at least $10,000, $5,000 off their names? I mean, it's like some of these players, and not all of them, but you could say maybe a good 70% of it, 75, maybe even more, excuse me, are coming from not so high poverty areas. As my great friend Matt pointed out, he said, this is what drives them. This is what gets them, to keep going. This is a make or break situation. This is between, and I hate to, put it, excuse me, in this sense, but it kind of is. It's basketball or nothing for these guys at sometimes. Not saying that, excuse me, not saying that they don't have a backup plan, but sometimes they really don't. Sometimes it's just basketball, because as soon as basketball's over, you go back to where you are, and now, as we all know, things don't go your way. You have to get money. You don't do it the right way, and then next you know, it brings legal troubles and all that. We get that. So that's why you see them one and done. That's why I always hear people say, "Well, they should stay in college longer." Well, think about it. They're not doing it just for themselves. They're doing it to better their families. They're doing it to even move them out of an area where they wasn't as great, and they won't move.
One shoe contract for LeBron James got his mom out of poverty forever.
At
18 years old. 18 years old.
18. Let that echo for a second. Kobe.
I'd probably say for players like him, Kobe Bryant, I think the reason that they chose to go right to the NBA is probably because of money. Michael Jordan's family had a little bit more than those two families did. He was able to go to UNC and have himself a little bit of a career there.
The college did say, "Hey, you should leave. You should leave."
Yeah, same thing that was told to Scottie Pippen. Same thing that was told to tons of players, and they're aware of that. And that's the truth. That's honestly why. That's one of the unwritten rules. If you're a player like LeBron James, you can go and not only get educated, but you can get more developed as a player and make money. Back then, people would have bought LeBron James gear if he went to Duke or UNC or anything like that. Same thing would have went for Kobe Bryant. Everybody knew who he was. And could Kobe Bryant have kept himself out of trouble earlier in his career had he went to college? Yes. And for those who don't know the full background, Kobe Bryant has had some incidents when he was young. And he spoke about number 8 Kobe, the immature Kobe, that needed to learn and develop as a man. And for these players, sometimes going to college would have benefited. They put them in an environment where they weren't on the bright lights right away. But honestly, because of the money, they had no choice but to take their talents directly to the NBA, given they both had phenomenal careers, one still going. But truth be told, sometimes these are things that aren't talked about enough, but they need to be.
But Zach, here's where my biggest problem stands. I knew this had to change at some point. I'm going to just bring up some names. Zach, you may or may not know. You got guys like Donald Delhay on YouTube known as Destroying. Zach, he's the UFC kicker that ended up just saying forget football and went to YouTube. Now he's making more money ever than what he would have made if he would have stayed at college. You got guys like Dockery, who's the same thing. He was a football player, wide receiver at Oregon, doing better, not playing football, not playing at Oregon, but he still is getting chances at NFL goals. But those guys have followings. Those guys were doing things off the field, which was YouTube. Zach, I don't understand what the problem is off the field. Why can't they make money off the field? It's not during their time. It's their names. Zach, last time I checked, your parent gave you, your mom and dad gave you your government name, not the University of Connecticut, not the University of this school. They didn't give you a name. These players nowadays, when you're coming from either from high school to college, some of these players have tremendous followings. Paige Beckers has over 900K followers on Instagram. Take that. She's almost at 1 million. You got guys like, Mikey Williams, who will be stepping into that spotlight sooner or later. Bronny James, and we know what he brings to the table. Even though LeBron James is set for life, and we know Bronny James, he's going to make his own money. But the thing is they're starting to get bigger in high school. You got organizations like Overtime and Slam giving high schoolers these opportunities to build a name and build a brand for themselves. And you're going to tell them if they come in to college, like, all right, whatever the brands and money you were making outside of college, that's to stop because you're in an organization that doesn't allow that. We saw with Trevor Lawrence, literally just used his face. It was his girlfriend's idea. His girlfriend wanted to run an organization it was a donation. She wanted to donate, but I mean, we don't know who she is. No offense, but we know who Trevor Lawrence is. So why not use his face? Oh, and you had to donate all that money to the NCAA. It doesn't make sense. It's like for this organization to make so much money off revenue, off ad. I mean, March Madness and College World Series and all those other things and NC and the college football championship. That's got to be $1 billion just alone in the respective sports. Now, exactly right now, the golf and the track, they don't get as much revenue or look, but it's like they do deserve something. And my other biggest problem was when that person gets hurt, that scholarship goes away. They're quick to pull away a scholarship. Like in context sports like football and basketball, where Zach, we know football injuries. I don't got to explain it. You also know the importance of basketball.
One hit knocks you out, and you're done.
One hit knocks you out. You can't walk no more. Or in basketball, you might never be able to play again. Guess what, Zach? That scholarship's done. Now, not only that, but you're back to square one, which is a kid. And now we talked about what I said earlier. It goes back to not having a backup plan. So I'm glad that they're getting money off their names now. I hope to see this can change. And Zach, honestly, I want to see. I don't know if this is possible, but I want to see Reggie Bush's Heisman get reinstated and his stats. He deserves his trophy back and all his stats. And also, too, Zach, I feel like I don't know if this is possible now, but some of the former players, like the Zion Williamsons and stuff, because I think the NCAA tried to take him and his family to court because I think Duke gave him a little bit of money to come to the school. I think you guys should be able to sue, get some money back. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and those cases will be dropped too because it's ruled unconstitutional to enforce those kind of rules. So that can date back, honestly. That's the nice thing about the Supreme Court rulings is it doesn't
and everything. Yeah,
you're not grandfathered in. That can be ruled unconstitutional at a later date. But thanks for joining us for our U.S. government lesson. But in all seriousness,
4 years of learning, right?
Oh, absolutely. In all honesty, I think that this is a great move for athletes. And one name too that you did not point out, Gavin, GM Golf. I don't know if you ever heard his story. He had to make a choice between college golf and his YouTube channel.
I watch GM Golf every day, Zach.
If you watch why I lost my NCAA scholarship, that's his video.
I did not watch that one, but Zach, I'm watching this one where he was playing, I think it was 6 people at Lake Tahoe. Oh man, it's a fantastic course. Fantastic course.
But yeah, I mean, for sure, look, they forced this kid into making that decision. And what would have happened now if it was different? So I imagine for those kind of players who made these tough decisions, it's quite emotional for them to see now that players are going to be able to benefit moving forward, and these guys weren't able to. It's a YouTube video. What's the big deal? The NCAA has had way too much power. Their job should be to work on the protection and the safety of the players. Gavin, we spoke about this back in March when the women's side of the NCAA was not getting equal equipment, or not even – people can say, oh, they bring less money. That's fine. But it was so disproportional. It was embarrassment.
It was disgusting.
And we had a whole show called The NCAA Has to Do Better. And they still have to. They have not done enough. And as much as they try to act like they're part of the social justice side, their social media platforms speak out on different issues. Last month was Pride Month, and of course during the Black Lives Matter movement, all that kind of things. You sure as hell don't act like you want to help out, because you're not. You're trying to be controlling. The Supreme Court of the United States literally just called you out for one of the most controversial rules in the history of sports. College sports is different than professional sports. There are people who genuinely enjoy college sports more than professional sports. There are people whose main team is a college team. If you live in Alabama and you don't have an NFL team nearby, you might be a Falcons fan on the side, but you're an Alabama fan the whole way.
Roll Tide.
Team. That is your team. And for these players to be disrespected and mistreated, look, if you're an athlete and you're putting in the hours for your school and they're not paying you, that's fine. But if you're going to be punished for trying to make your own money in a different way, that's all on you. You see MLB players, you see lots of guys that do vlogs and do things like that. You can't do that in college, or that you couldn't do that in college. It's a shame. It's a shame that this conversation even had to happen. And I remember being on our middle school news debating one of our teachers back in 7th grade about whether or not college players should be paid. And my stance hasn't changed. I don't think they should be paid by the program, but they shouldn't be removed from being able to make money on their own. Because then what? If you have an amazing talent to do YouTube and things like that, and you can grow an account while you're in college going through that experience, you didn't make it to the NFL, or you didn't make a roster. Or if you're in a sport that really doesn't have a professional league, and you come out of college with debt for your non-paid part of the scholarship, and then you can't make money, you essentially couldn't make any real money while you were in college doing that sport. Well, how does that help us? How does that help kids? What's the whole point of getting the education then if you can't do things on your own? It's just people don't think things through. And the fact that it had to come down to this is an embarrassment. The fact that we're having this conversation is unfortunate. But again, I want to look at it from the positive note. I'm happy deep down as a sports fan that and as someone who knows a lot of players that are playing collegiate sports, I'm happy that they have removed this roadblock, because players are more than just athletes. I can't emphasize that enough, and I talk about it all the time. My biggest pet peeve is when people think athletes are just that. They are more than an athlete. They're for the professional sports. A lot of them are investors. A lot of them are working in the different types of the business world. For college kids, for high school kids, they're trying to coddle these kids into being just athletes. You lift all day, you go home, you eat, you go to bed.
I mean,
we are more than that. And sorry, we are more than just athletes. And it's time that they start getting respect at the college level, and of course the high school level. There's not much of an issue, but just tying that in as well.
They're starting to get famous too. Like I said, don't sleep up look, my final arguments are this. It is simple. Don't take money away from somebody that's doing it on their own, on side business. Zach, this is what we do on the side, all right? You have something.
We couldn't do this next year if we were playing sports. If I was playing golf at Westchester, I
We
could not.
couldn't. Well, yeah, just I think we couldn't do this, or you could do what the Cavender twins did in Fresno State. They had a YouTube channel with over 200K followers, but they couldn't get monetized. And what that means for those who may or may not know about that, monetize is once you get to 1,000 followers or 1,000 subscribers, you can put ads on your channel, and that means with the ads you get revenue off the channel, which they could easily did it, but they couldn't do it. It's like, and 200, and I think 200,000 in YouTube is almost around $25,000 to $50,000 already, if not even in the hundreds, depending on what it is. I have to relook at that. And finally, Zach, Leslie, the NCAA should be thankful for social media because, like I said, these followings that some of these players have, like I wasn't really big into the NCAA women's basketball until, like I said, with the pandemic, I started looking at some things. And I found a player and I followed them, and next you know, you just learn more about it. Without that, who would know? The NCAA, and it's like, you know how terrible organization you have to be if people are willing to go to another country just to not come to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what scares them too, is that the G League for the NBA, the entrance program, the NBL, the International Basketball Leagues, which LaMelo Ball entered through, and Luka Doncic and things like that. It's the competition's getting bigger for the NCAA. They no longer have a monopoly, and they hate it.
Zach, RJ Hampton said, "All right, you know what? I'm 19 because you have to be 18. You have to be 19 to enter the NBA." He said, "You know, I'm 18. I'm going to Europe for a year, and guess what?" And he came back. Zach, and people are going to G Leagues and doing everything else. Yeah, there's a loophole in the system to get around. Now, that's not for every sport, Zach. You know you can't do that in football, and you know you can't do that in other sports.
Baseball's hard.
Baseball is hard. It's already hard enough to get through the minors, and the fact that you got to go 4 years or 3 to 4 years of not making any money, Zach, I think we're about to see more shots fired at the NCAA when it comes to some things. And finally, Zach, just from the fan perspective of me, I'm happy that people can get paid now because NCAA football and basketball, I need some new games, Zach. I need them. The last time I played NCAA football, I had Temple ranked number 3 in the nation. I lost to Alabama in the championship game. Don't ask why. And Zach, finally, I need that basketball game back. I need to make another historical run. I just got to pick a new team. So it was all fun.
Without a doubt. Well, with that being said, again, we have just recapped the NCAA new rules and changes made to them. Just a reminder that it was not the NCAA who did this. It was the Supreme Court overruling them. We'll have to continue to talk about our concerns with the NCAA because the concerns are quite big. However, there is talks about expanding the NCAA football playoffs. Again, that's still some things that we're going to cover in the future, not for today. But coming up after this, an interview for Scottie Pippen and Dan Patrick. It was just kind of speaking about the whole process with the Bulls and of course, the Last Dance documentary coming out. Scottie Pippen, interesting comments. And again, there's some context to this. And I'll supply some of the context. Gavin will have an opportunity to kind of speak on his thoughts and feedback on it. All that coming up after this. We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom designed mask with our logo on it. Purchase it today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewers' choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes 2 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mask sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Enjoy today's episode. Welcome back here on the More Than Philly Sports Network, just talking about the NCAA new rules. But let's talk about a different topic now. Again, Scottie Pippen being interviewed, talking about that final play a couple years back when Jordan was taking a year or so off. It was a 2-point game, I believe it was, and Tony Kukoc, the play was drawn up for Scottie Pippen, choosing to not go in for that play. Kukoc knocks down the game-winning 3 to win the game. All has been kind of quiet since then. Michael Jordan came back. They won 3 more rings. But it kind of came up again in the Last Dance when he said he sat out because he was hurt. But then a few weeks ago, he called out Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant called him out. Dan Patrick kind of brought that up on his show when he interviewed him. And Scottie Pippen had mentioned that it was his only year without Michael Jordan. He felt that he had earned the opportunity to have that last shot which we understand. At least me personally, I understand that. He does take it a step further, saying he does believe that race did have some involvement in that decision that Phil Jackson had made. And Dan Patrick, he kind of egged him on. He kind of said, like, do you think – he didn't straight up say it, Pippen that is, but Dan Patrick did ask him, do you think race could have been a factor? He just said yes. And that was kind of where they left it. And so there's been a lot of conversation about it. I haven't seen much that supports Pippen's case. Stephen A. Smith coming out not talking too favorably of Pippen in that situation. I don't have much else really to think on this. I don't know Phil Jackson personally. You truly don't know someone until you do. But I've never really heard reports of that in the past about Phil Jackson. But, Gavin, I'm going to hand it off to you. Have an opportunity to speak on some of your thoughts on that.
Zach, I'm going to just say this. We don't know Phil Jackson personally, all right? You said that, and I'm going to say it again. Phil Jackson is not my best friend. I never met the guy. And if I ever did, I would get a picture with him. If he was racist, as so-called Scottie Pippen said, which is completely, utterly a reach of attention, for crying out loud, why did in the Last Dance? Why did Phil Jackson connect with Dennis Rodman, who happened to be black? Zach, I mean, what is that? Phil Jackson was connecting with Dennis Rodman spiritually and was there for him, and they were bad and they were cool. Him and Michael Jordan won six titles together. Oh, and by the way, Zach, Michael Jordan happened to be black. Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant happened to be black. Now, Zach, if you can come back for this one, I want to ask you this question. Now, when you have a problem with somebody that's racially, do you think, and because once again, ladies and gentlemen, hate, if you really do hate something, you shouldn't be, you can't stand that, right? Why was his most successful moments with Jordan, Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, Kobe, and Shaq, who all were black players? It's like, if this guy, Phil Jackson, was supposed to be this racial guy that Scottie Pippen is making him out to be, that we don't know. Zach, you're right. We don't know him personally. But from what we saw in The Last Dance, didn't seem like it. But Zach, if Phil Jackson was a so-called racist guy, why would his greatest moments would be with Michael Jordan and Shaq and Kobe, and two, Zach, when Phil Jackson left the Lakers, why did they ask for him back? Kobe asked for him back. Oh, and real quick, Zach, why did Michael Jordan said he wouldn't play for anyone else but Phil Jackson? See, here's where Scottie Pippen's wrong, Zach, and I'm going to hand it to you. You're just mad because they drew a play for somebody else. Zach, I ran over the numbers. Tony Kukoc was a better three-point shooter in that year than Scottie Pippen. Zach, Scottie Pippen wasn't known for his three, but he was known to be a facilitator, the point forward. He was the first generation point forward. He played defense. He was two-way. You sat out and didn't go into the game. Zach, he sat out. I mean, Zach, if you want, he sat out. Tony Kukoc hits a shot. Everybody was upset at Scottie Pippen because he sat out. It wasn't a racial move. It's an idiotic move and a sore loser-like-ish play by Scottie Pippen not to be out there with his team. I'm sorry, but I'm going to call how it is, Zach.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think it's possible to have racial moments where you can do something that is racist but not be a racist as a person. I think that there are instances of that, but this is not one of those positions. And it's not just one incident. It's a history of respect, not just from players that are black, but to them and how he treated them. And remember the 90s, the late 80s, the 90s. I mean, that's the beginning of the era of a new generation where we had integration in schools, where we had all these kids. Of course, in the 60s, segregation ended, and that generation started to get drowned out of racism. Phil Jackson coming from that era. But this was the first time where you're watching lots of players and you're not thinking twice about each other's skin color. Of course, that's ideally what the dream is, to have people that you don't think twice about what they look like. I don't think that this was a racially driven play. I don't think it was the fact that we're having this conversation, this happened to 94, 95?
94, 95, yeah. Around there.
I mean, it's silly. And I hate to put words in Scottie Pippen's mouth, and I hate to sit here and speak about someone who I've never encountered in my life. But how can you look at Kobe, Shaq, all of these players that are black, and if Pippen had an issue, why didn't he lead the team? Why didn't he lead the team? I don't know how he came to the conclusion. I think it was a statistical approach that Kukoc had a better 3-point shooting percentage than Pippen.
Shaq also too.
It's that simple.
Shaq also too. If you want to go back to the same year, he also hit a shot. I don't remember against what team it was, but early in the year, Phil Jackson did the same thing where he dribbled play and Tony Kukoc hit the shot. So if a guy has hit that shot once, I mean, there's a 50% chance he could do it again. I mean, Zach, I think we all would take the odds, right? I mean, versus a guy that didn't attempt the shot. It's like this just reeks of needing attention. I'll be honest. This is what Scottie Pippen reeks of reaching attention. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the comments you saw on Charles Barkley. I mean, okay. And I mean, what you say about Michael Jordan? Careful what you speak on because you didn't win without him. He needed you to win, but you couldn't. But you definitely needed him to win. I mean, it's like, and finally, going back on your last point, if Phil Jackson was a so-called racist guy it's like you're right. He is from that era. But if you are a head coach of a team that great, right? Do you really think? And I could be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Do you really think he would, purposely lose the game just to take you out? I think it was a statistic decision where the better shooter was there, which was Tony Kukoc at that moment, and he chose him over Scottie Pippen. It's like if Phil Jackson was a so-called racist, he wouldn't have won any championships. He wouldn't have done it, especially with those three players.
He wouldn't have survived in the NBA. If you're a racist, you don't survive in the NBA.
Exactly, because at the 90s, a lot of the great players happened to be African American. Besides a couple of them, and Larry Bird, first person to come to mind. But Zach, as you say, I mean, come on, Scotty, really, man. I mean, you and Rachel Nichols at the same time. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. I mean, Zach, there's no like following to it. There's no backing of it. There's no recent
brand new information in 2021.
Exactly. If you would have came out and said this back in 1990 something, and then you come out and said again, okay, I see it. But if it was a racial decision, you would have left that summer. I mean, this is a guy that did get a surgery late. That to not
on purpose. He is a guy known to hold grudges and have issues with the organization.
Exactly. I mean, and you got the greatest player of all time. Zach, I know we go back and forth about who's who, but in this instance, you had the greatest player of all time say, "I'm not playing unless Phil is back." I think those words should overcome anything Scottie Pippen says. Just remember those, ladies and gentlemen. And if Kobe Bryant asked for Phil Jackson to come back, and I know when Phil Jackson came back, it wasn't that historical on the second go round. But Zach, if he asked for him to come back, don't you think those two, what they said, overshadows what Scottie Pippen will ever say about Phil Jackson? I think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think this is a certain situation. I don't know what to think because I don't know Phil Jackson. I don't know Scottie Pippen. I know both of them have different backgrounds. They come from different environments. But I think for them, in order for this accusation that Pippen is making to be true or to have some truth to it, it's hard. It's a hard argument to make because it makes sense statistically. And remember, there was a game where Steve Kerr hit a game winner with Michael Jordan on the floor. That's kind of where I leave it too. Obviously, he's statistically driven. I mean, I don't know how racist you have to be to refuse to let your black guy shoot the ball if he's a better 3-point shooter, which he wasn't. And I think that you'd be a moron of a coach to not choose the statistically right decision. And so what Pippen is claiming is that Phil Jackson would have been fine losing that game as long as it was a white guy shooting the last shot. There's just not much truth to that. It doesn't make much sense to me. Again, I can't emphasize we don't know these guys enough, but there is enough history for us to be able to take a look at and make a decision based off that.
And Zach, and going to that Steve Kerr game winner, Michael gave Steve Kerr the ball. Steve Kerr said, "I'm open. I'm gonna make the shot. Just give it to me." And with if Michael Jordan felt it was a racial move, he wouldn't have did it. Michael Jordan wanted to win.
Michael Jordan just wanted to win the game.
He wanted to win the game. He's going to do anything.
And here's what no one's talking about. Kukoc's shot went in.
If he
missed a 3-point shot and he made it, and they won the game.
So
he didn't airball it.
You didn't airball. It was actually a swish, I think, to be quite honest with you. Zach, I don't know. Scottie Pippen, you got to do better. You got to, if you're trying to draw attention, there's a lot of other things you draw attention to yourself in 2021, but this is not the way. You don't talk bad about people that helped you along your way, Zach, Jordan, and you sure as don't talk about Jordan or Phil Jackson. I don't even know what the Charles Barkley comments were, but Zach, I think Charles Barkley is one of the most respected players. Zach, according to our statistic class, he was actually the GOAT considered at one point. So
he had a great career too. I think that for a lot of these guys, it's certainly been there's certainly been a lot of stories, a lot of headlines that have been swirling around. Again, 20-some years later, I'm not sure where the stance. Almost 30 years later,
there's no flame to it.
I'm not sure that there's much to it. But do you think, Gavin, it was to diverge from what Kevin Durant said? Because Kevin Durant called him out for it, and that's kind of where the base of this conversation was. Durant and Pippen had a back and forth on Twitter. Shocker for Katie Trey, but I think that for this situation, Pippen said that Durant tried to go punch for punch and did not use the rest of his team to score. He was trying to go do it all himself. And then Durant went on a round of tweets, one of them including, you were butthurt, essentially, he said, over not getting the final shots, so you sat out for that minute. And then, of course, that was brought up on the Dan Patrick show, and that's when Scottie kind of brought out the whole idea that it was a race decision and completely shutting down the possibility of this being anything that Kevin Durant had with any truth to it.
Well, Zach, there's going to be two biggest things to Scottie Pippen's career, and we always would never forget these. The last championship where he sat out half the year, and obviously the one we just talked about, him sitting out. Zach, I think
the issue wasn't with the coach. I'm pretty sure he said that. I think it was with the front office.
It was front office. That year's was with the front office. Zach, and that's a couple years later.
That wasn't with Phil Jackson.
That wasn't with Phil Jackson, exactly. So Zach, this was an opportunity for people, because remember, as soon as Kevin Durant said that, they were like, "Oh yeah, you did sit out." It was one of those moments. Every time Scottie Pippen's going to say something about somebody, all you got to do is like the shut up moment. It's like, well, you sat out, you didn't help the team out, and they were all upset. And the thing is, Zach,
which is true when you lost that locker room that day.
You lost the locker. They lost the locker.
Also a disaster.
They viewed him as a leader, and guess what, Zach? He wasn't there for him. So to answer your question, yes, Zach, I do view this as a way to be like, well, hey, wait a minute, I'm the victim here. No, you're not. You're at fault. Nice try. Good. But Zach, it is kind of ironic. It was Kevin Durant. We know Kevin Durant is media, but at this one, I think it was right.
I think it was an unnecessary response for a. I mean, Durant has changed the whole idea of how players use Twitter, but I think that for Kevin Durant to respond to that was not un-Kevin Durant-like, but it's still immature in my opinion to be kind of responding to some of those comments from former players. But hey,
well, at the same time,
if you're going to deal the smoke, you better be able to handle it back for Scott. If that's Scottie Pippen in that case.
Well, Zach, look, there's a saying: if you don't want no smoke, then don't. Zach, then don't light it. Don't light the fire, and don't put it out. Zach,
Kevin Durant, he'll fire back. Kevin Durant will
fire it back, and he doesn't care. He'll fire it back. And lastly, Zach, I think that response was okay, Zach, because what Scottie Pippen said sounded like he didn't even watch the series, not at all, not one bit. I'm not sure, ladies and gentlemen. We will never know what's going on, but as a Scottie Pippen's case, that looked terrible, just flat out awful.
Yeah, not necessarily the best situation there at all for Scottie Pippen, but hey, this story has since really died off. Of course, we're still playing a little bit of catch up, not being on the show for the last week, but we'll continue to talk about it if anything comes up with it. Of course, there's other hot water going on at ESPN. One thing that we'll touch on briefly here, haven't had a chance to talk too much off air about it, so we try to limit too much on air. But of course, some audio was leaked on the 4th, and 2 days ago, with Rachel Nichols explaining that she believed that ESPN, and I quote, did not have the best history with diversity in the past, trying to make up for it by giving Maria Taylor the sideline job for that game and for the NBA Finals. I take two issues with this. I don't think she's wrong in the very first part where she says ESPN is just trying to make up for lost time. She's essentially saying Maria got the job not because of her talent, but because of her skin color. That part I don't agree with, and I condemn her 100% for. But, Gavin, does she have a point calling out ESPN for their past lack of inclusion, talking years past in their whole history as an organization?
Well, of course, Zach. I mean, if you look at ESPN in the '90s, Zach, they wasn't the cleanest sports company come out. Um, but especially with the parties and everything and the backstage behind the cameras and stuff. So we know that. And Stuart Scott and Stephen A. all these guys, they had faced some type of adversity to get to where they were, respectively the late great Stuart Scott and everybody. But she's not wrong for the first part. She is 100% wrong for the second part, and here's why. Maria Taylor is talented, Zach. She was working the NCAA Women's Tour halftime show. She can do NFL. She can do basketball. Zach, she is versatile. Now, here's where it gets shaky because Rachel Nichols is really respected in the NBA side because she ran the jump and does everything else. But here's where it is. Maria Taylor, sometimes it's nice to have a fresh face. And at the moment in time, yes, I think this was a move by ESPN to show the diversity. But for Rachel Nichols to come out and say what she said, I don't believe she was right in that. And the apology and the fact that Maria Taylor didn't say anything, which is nice because Zach, we live in an era where we're always waiting for the clapback, the response from
I hope that was a phone call behind closed doors between the two of them. I hope that was an apology from Rachel. I hope that was a phone call behind closed doors. Keep the drama out of it. I don't know how Maria feels about it. I would not feel, for anyone. I don't see myself as my skin color. I see myself as a sports reporter for ESPN. And I earned the right to be a sideline reporter for the NBA Finals. I wouldn't see this as a race.
Her resume, Zach, deserves at least a respect of something, of some sort. It's like she runs the ESPN or ABC where they do halftime and they do the.
Aren't all four of them on that? It's what Adrian Wojnarowski, Jalen Rose, Maria Taylor, and Rachel Nichols, isn't it?
No, it's Jason Jay Will as a last.
Jay Will, that's right.
But Zach, I mean, she's talented. It wasn't because of her skin color. It was because of the talent she brings. She's versatile. And I think the fact that Rachel Nichols took it to that standpoint doesn't look bad. And Zach, we're in the NBA where players don't forget. They're more than just athletes, Zach. Especially, the Jason Tatums, the Jaylen Browns, and the fact that she was speaking of a spokesperson of LeBron James, all people, Zach. I mean, they're not going to forget this. The next time she does a sideline report, the next time that, anything NBA player, they're not going to take it out against her, but they won't forget, Zach. They really won't. And this is also Rachel Nichols, who I'm going to be honest, Zach, and I'm not trying to discredit her anyway. I don't really find Rachel Nichols as a great sideline reporter. I mean, there's this picture on ESPN where she was making cases she asked Damian Lillard, do you feel bad about beating Kobe on his last night or Kobe night or something? Do you feel, and then on the day that she was making a case that because of Kobe's passing away that LeBron James won MVP, she was doing some things that you would kind of as eyebrow raising, Zach. I'm not going to get into the other ones, but come on now. Come on, Rachel. You got to be better. Maria is really talented. You guys are both highly respected in what you guys do, but come on, they're going out limit and to make it seem like it's all yours. I mean, Zach, I wouldn't work there. Maybe I might be better than Rachel. If you're gonna have a problem with me, I mean, come on, y'all. The first part, she's definitely. I don't think she's wrong about the diversity, but her ending remarks were pretty terrible.
Yeah, it's how you interpret it. The words themselves aren't cruel in a way, but it does kind of rub off an interpretation to this way. I did not get to watch the apology that she issued this morning. I've not yet watched it, but one thing to take away from this, not to defend her, but just to remember that she has been well respected as a reporter by people of all races over the years for her job. I think she made a significant mistake and she will pay for it. And nobody can pay for her mistake for her except for herself. And that's up to her to decide how she wants to move forward with it. It's ESPN is not looking like they're going to fire her. They may suspend her or whatever if they choose to. It's up to them. But if her job is safe, she has to make sure that she doesn't take that for granted and she does better in the future.
Zach, I will say this because I'm not calling for Rachel Nichols' job. I did see a tweet from Jason Tatum and Jalen Rose's daughter about wanting Rachel Nichols fired. No, ladies and gentlemen, at least a suspension or something, at least a public apology. At some point, the worldwide leader of sports, as much as they've been actively in the past year, you got to put your foot down at some point. You got to put your foot down. I don't stay fired because that's cancel culture, and I think we have to start listening a little bit more to some people and why they think that way. But something has to be done. She can't just issue an apology on the jump and then immediately go back to talking. Because once again, you are working in one of the most, Zach, and I'm coming out and say the NBA is the best league in the United States because of how active they are in the community and social issues and everything, especially the take they took last year. So there has to be a little bit more something. She was in the NFL, where we know as the NFL didn't have a great start when it came to the whole the movements and everything a couple years ago, but she's in the NBA, so I do expect something. It's not going to be harsh for firing. It's going to be maybe a test suspension or something.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see how this continues to roll out. We will continue to cover that, of course. Something like that. Private conversation or not, that's how she felt. And again, sometimes people have private conversations that we don't know about that aren't leaked and we think different about them. And then they come out and it could change your perspective. Just everybody's got to be careful about what they say. More importantly, when you say something and you mean it, you got to be able to stick by it and defend it. Don't say something that you're going to regret if it does come out later on. That's my only final message. We'll continue to follow this story, see what comes of it as we continue to push for.
We will talk about off the show too, because
absolutely for sure as we continue to address again, just not forcing race into every issue. Not everything's about race on both sides. Honestly, usually when people say don't bring race into it, it's from one side. Usually not from this side, on which they think, oh, she only was hired because of her skin color. That's not true at all. And in my opinion, that reduces someone down to just their skin color, and that's not what you should do.
Don't overlook her talents.
That's the last thing that you want to do. So with that being said, we'll continue to cover that story. Coming up after this, am I still crazy for thinking that my Philadelphia Phillies will make the playoffs?
You are.
I am.
You are, my friend. You are.
Why I'm ready to double down on my prediction halfway through the season. Stay tuned.
Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this.
The New York Mets will not be winning the NL East. They won't be. They were in last place last year. 2 moves at most, 3 moves in the offseason was not enough. They have started off hot, but they are cooling down, and they're cooling down quickly. They are still 7 games above 500. But if my prediction is right, that the New York Mets will not win the division, that opens it up to 3 other teams. The Washington Nationals, who are fighting injuries but are red hot. The Atlanta Braves, who are a mediocre team like the Phillies, who are also battling injuries. And the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't think people realized how injured the Phillies have been. JT Realmuto has been in the lineup but has been fighting an injury since early in the year. He has since gotten healthier. Gene Segura was hurt. He has come back and has proven his value. And Didi Gregorius is back, and he is fighting and proving his value. What is that team? They are 6-2. I'm sorry, they're 4-2 in their last 6 games. 6-4 in their last 10. And even though they had a gruesome loss to San Diego the other night, they won 2 of the games against that team, which is in second place in the hardest division in baseball. And last night, a team that, yes, is on a 12-game losing streak, they ripped the door open on the Chicago Cubs. The Phillies are gaining momentum, and they're gaining it at the perfect time. With 6 games left before the All-Star break, the Phillies can pull within arguably 3 games or 2 games of the New York Mets. And they play the Cubs tonight, play the Cubs tomorrow, and they have 1 more game against the Cubs. Gavin, you say this all the time, majority. You take those 3 games, and then you go up against the Red Sox. If you can take some of those games, then arguably you're in a good place where you can actually go on to win. After that, you have the All-Star break, a time where teams either heat up or cool down. If they can go into this All-Star break within 2 or 3 games of first place, they're going to start heating up. And they'll become buyers at the trade deadline. They will have to continue to destroy their farm system, as if they had anything, but they will acquire some good closing pitching and some other potential offensive pieces possible for center field, which is, again, becoming an issue. Abdul Herrera has since his hot start went down. They come out of the All-Star break against the Marlins in 4 games in Philly, and then against the struggling Yankees, and then against the Braves, Nationals, and then Pirates. That is a pretty easy end of July. And the Phillies have an opportunity to go on and do something. If they can make a good move and they can maintain momentum, and Aaron Nola for once can just pitch how he has been the past few games, minus one of them, Zach Eflin can continue to do his job. Despite his poor outing, Vinny Velasquez has actually been having a pretty good year. And if they can get the bullpen figured out, which they are, they're changing things around. The lineup is finally moving. Harper is finally in the 4 spot. Reese is getting hot again. We don't know what's up with Alec Boehm. We don't know what he's going to do. But this manager is making adjustments. And you combine that with momentum, an easy schedule, and a couple more pieces to bring in. The Phillies do have what it takes to win this division. We're getting closer to dog days, Gavin. We're a month away from the quiet days when no one's paying attention and the Phillies crash and burn. But the division is winnable. And despite some bad stretches they've had, they're staying in these games. Once they stop blowing saves, they're going to start winning games. They're a good team. They just don't know how to win yet. They're so close. And at some point, they're going to break through. And I got to hold on to my prediction at this point. I'm feeling good right now. They might lose tonight. They might lose 100-0. I don't care. But they have the ingredients. This next month is telling. And by the end of July, I think I'll be able to have my decision. July 30th at 4 p.m., the trade deadline. Maybe we'll do a trade deadline special. We will sit here and we'll figure out if my prediction still will stand or if I'm just talking crazy talk. Because I see it. I see the blown saves. I see the lack of offense some nights. I see the frustration. I get it. But nobody else is doing any better in the NL East. And that gives the Phillies some hope.
First of all, Zach, before I got 2 things. Before I go into my soliloquy about how bad the Phillies are, and I don't know. First of all, Zach, I just want you to do one of these for me. Just want you to touch a foot. Are you hot? You feeling good today? You good?
Feeling all right?
Feeling all right? Okay. All right, just making sure. Because what you just said, I don't know. And then, Zach, who can they even buy? Do they even have money? I mean, who's even available at the trade deadline? Because we know this team. They don't go anybody. They don't go for anybody.
Something's got to be different this year.
But who's out there? Like, who's going to be buying? Like,
there's closers who are decent, who aren't big names, but they can go out there and they can make a move.
What about center field?
They're going to have to look at there as well. I don't know. Look, I think that a couple of teams that they can buy from, and again, I got to look at their players. I am putting something together right now. Of course, the Pirates and the Cardinals are 2 basement teams. Diamondbacks, Rockies could be sellers at the deadline. Orioles, of course, are going to be sellers. Twins, Royals, Tigers, and then from the Angels down could potentially be sellers as well. There's going to be guys that are going to be cut. There's a lot of moves that Phillies can make. Some quiet moves that aren't big, significant players that can just come in and help this team win. They need to learn how to win. They have the talent. They need to learn how to win.
See, Zach, you're putting me in a tough spot. You really are. You want to know why you put me in a tough spot, Zach? Because you know how much I like the Phillies, right? You know how much I like them. All right, it may seem like I'm not, but I really do. I'm just really frustrated. I'm not going to sit by this anymore. All right? I don't see what Zach's talking about. I really don't. You have one of the worst bullpens. It's not as bad as last year, but Zach, there's not.
No, it's actually worse. It's been worse than last year.
Oh, it's worse.
As of late, the last 2 weeks, we really messed it up.
All but one person, Hector Neris. Just one person, just one. Why is he still here, Zach? It's 11. It's what was it? And you were there for this, right? You were there on Sunday, correct?
I was there.
Top 9. What was the score in the top 9?
They get 6 runs in that inning.
Before that, what was? It
was 5-1.
How do you lose 11-1 in the top 9? How? And you're telling me, and I'm not saying you're blaming Hector Neris because I don't think he made an appearance, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. It's like this guy Hector Neris is awful.
No, Blake Snell had a really, really good pitching day, actually.
For once, Blake Snell actually didn't use his mouth and actually pitched, and magically a great outing came out. Zach, I was impressed by the fact that the Phillies won the majority versus the Padres. I thought they actually were going to get stomped by the Padres. I thought the Padres were going to come in and just sweep them. Last night surprised me. Didn't really care because you know what? I just know the Phillies aren't just going to let me down. They're going to lose 30-0 tonight. But I will say this: Zach, if they can move Alec Bohm, because he is hot trash for crying out loud. I don't know what people saw him last year, and tell me if those same people are okay, and if they are okay, ask them what they saw in him, because that doesn't make sense to me about what they see, because I don't see anything. I see a guy that is full as gold, that had one good year, and is doing nothing else to prove his chances to improve. Zach, Bryce Harper's actually looking good this year. Reese Hoskins, I apologize. Zach, that's breaking news right there. I'm apologizing to Reese Hoskins. Aaron Nola's hot trash. Zach Wheeler's the ace. I mean, what else? Center field is a mystery. A Dubois looked nice last night. Zach, all right, I said it. A Dubois looked nice. But if you want this team to compete versus the Atlanta Braves, who Zach at one point will get healthy again. Acuna, I don't know if he's still in the MVP running, if he's number one, but I think DeGrom might have that in the bag, but DeGrom doesn't get wins. Zach, this division is winnable. You're right. It's not going to happen because the Braves are going to heat up. The Mets, at some point, all the money that they spend will have to show up at some point. And Washington they're going to take a step back. But Zach, in order for them to win the division, they have to jump 3 teams. 2 teams that have been to the playoffs.
They're tied right now with the Braves, and they're a half game back of Washington.
If they have a great end of July, Zach, I would sing a different tune. But I don't see it. And you're right, Zach. They had to be buyers. But Zach, they had a chance to be buyers this past offseason. What? Noah Arenado didn't do it. The Trevor Bauer market, which as of right now, Zach, I don't think anybody wants a piece of Trevor Bauer. Doesn't look good. Zach, this team, we just know this team is just it's cheap. They don't like spending money. They don't like doing anything when it comes to just spending money for this team. Zach, I do like what George Wright is doing. He's making adjustments. He's making the right adjustments. He's moving people around. He's the momentum. He's right out the way. But that bullpen is going to be the killer part. The bullpen is going to be the killer part. You have to do something about it. Bring in Ketel Marte from the Diamondbacks, so he can play all over the place. Zach, he's a switch hitter. Bring him in, put him in center field. There's your center field problems. Go get you a guy that's hot in the bullpen right now. There's some teams that are selling. You just got to find them.
There are, and there's good pitchers on those teams too.
And it's like I know that how struggling the Cubs are. Maybe you go get Chris Bryant, and you get rid of Alec Bohm. Maybe you do that. I don't know. You got to do something though. You got to be in win now mode at some point in time. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to take
the time to do it right here. They got to prove it though. They got to these next few games. They got to win. They got to prove to the front office that they're worth winning now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to apologize for the lighting. The sun is actually beating me in my face. I tried to adjust the camera a couple of times, so I apologize for that. But Zach, you're right. They can do it. I just don't see it happening. Maybe next year. And I think George Wright does deserve a contract extension.
We'll see how the adjustments go, how the lineup continues to change. I'm excited for it. I think they can really get some momentum going, but they got to learn how to win games. With that being said, we do have some breaking news. Gavin will report it right after this.
So, as soon as we were done talking about Rachel Nichols and the allegations and everything going on, we got breaking news from sideline sources that Rachel Nichols will not be doing the sideline interview for this NBA Finals. It will be Malika Andrews, Zach, who I really like, a young reporter, and she's really great. When Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn News and stuff was going down, she covered it on point, just as great as Agent Wojnarowski for a day-to-day moment. And the statement from ESPN said, "We believe in this is the best decision for all concerned in order to keep the focus on the NBA Finals. Rachel will continue to host the jump." So that is a statement from ESPN. Zach, what is your thoughts?
There's your punishment. You didn't want to do the sideline reporting. You thought that this was a situation that, got way taken out of bounds from your comments. This is your punishment. Will it be a fine? I'm not sure. Will it be a suspension? It doesn't look like it. This is pretty fair, I think. I think for these comments, she's earned a lot of respect over her years, and this shouldn't be the single thing that cancels her. But I think that this is an adequate punishment. I think there could be more to be done, but I think at the same time, it's not nothing. It's not inaction, which is kind of what you have to make sure you avoid.
Zach, it's better than just turning a blind eye, as America is great at doing sometimes. All right, this is something. It maybe not be what everybody wants. Zach, we all came out. I came out and said this is not worth the firing, but this finals is so great. And Zach, I know we're going to be on later to talk about it, but this is going to be one of the best finals ever. You have two teams that haven't won nothing. You have teams that trust the process. Like, I'm gonna save my statements for later on that, but keep it strict about the finals. I like what ESPN did. Malika Andrews deserves the opportunity to show her voice a little bit more, and this is the main stage to do it. And if Rachel Nichols were to do it, a lot of the players were not going to. All the focus would have been off that.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, thank you again for joining us, everybody. Tonight, we are back before the NBA Finals to preview Game 1 between Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and the Phoenix Suns, and Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, most likely not Giannis. We will see how that report turns out tonight. He wants to play tonight, but we're not sure if the team will let him. Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight in Phoenix, Arizona. It's going to be a fun one. We're going to be here to report all of it. Make sure you stay tuned to our social media for when we go live. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all tonight.
Have a good one, everybody. Make sure you tune in tonight. It's going to be a good one. And Zach, I'm excited. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, apologies for the lighting. My room just does not like me today.
Have a good one, everybody.
Have a good one, everybody.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post excerpts of our videos.